Ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in life when all of us must confront a simple truth: we are not in control of everything. As much as we plan, as much as we strategize, there are forces beyond our understanding that shape the outcomes of our lives. It is in those moments of uncertainty, fear, and doubt that we must ask ourselves, do I trust the one who created me? Letting go is not a sign of weakness, it's a demonstration of wisdom. It is the understanding that trying to control every detail, every outcome, and every person around you will only lead to frustration and burnout. You were never designed to carry the weight of the world. You were created to live in alignment with purpose, not in a constant state of anxiety about what might happen tomorrow. When you trust God, you release the need to figure out everything on your own. You step into a higher realm of thinking where you believe that there is a plan greater than what you can see right now. The first step in letting go is understanding that your strength is limited, but His is infinite. Now, letting go doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. No, it means you do your part and you trust Him with the rest. You plant the seed, but you don't force it to grow. That's God's job. You take the steps you know to take, and then you surrender the outcome. This is faith in action. Faith is not passive, it is active. It is choosing to release fear and replace it with trust. Think about this. How often do we hold on to things that no longer serve us? We cling to toxic relationships, failed plans, or even our own limited understanding. But holding on to what is not meant for you only blocks what is waiting for you. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is release what feels familiar, but it is in the release that you make room for something greater. Letting go requires humility. It requires acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay because God does. His perspective is higher than yours. His wisdom is deeper. What looks like a loss to you today might be setting you up for a victory tomorrow. But you'll never know that unless you let go of your grip on the temporary and trust Him with the eternal. So how do you trust God fully? Acknowledge Him in every situation. Remind yourself daily that He is in control and His plans are good. Release what you cannot change. Stop rehearsing the what ifs, and if only surrender your past, your worries, and your fears to Him. Focus on what He has promised. He promised to never leave you or forsake you. He promised to guide you, strengthen you, and provide for you. Hold on to those promises. Be patient. Trusting God means accepting His timing. Sometimes the answer is delayed not because He's denying you, but because He's preparing you. Let me leave you with this thought. When you let go and trust God, you free yourself from the prison of worry and step into the freedom of faith. You allow Him to guide you into places you could never reach on your own. You open yourself to blessings that your striving could never produce. So today, release your grip on what's holding you back. Lay down your fear, your doubt, and your need for control. And trust that the one who made you, the one who knows your beginning and your end, has already made a way. Let go and trust God. Letting go is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. This statement carries a profound truth that resonates deeply with the human experience. Throughout life, we are taught to hold on to people, to dreams, to ideals, to control. Society often equates strength with the ability to endure, to persevere, and to maintain control over every situation. Yet the reality is that true strength often lies in knowing when to let go, in releasing the grip on what no longer serves us, and in trusting that the release is not an act of surrender, but an act of faith and wisdom. Letting go requires a level of understanding that goes beyond the surface. It demands a deep awareness of the seasons of life and the impermanence of everything around us. To cling to something that has outlived its purpose is not a demonstration of strength. Rather, it is a refusal to grow. Wisdom acknowledges that life is dynamic, ever-changing, and that what once was a blessing can become a burden if held on to for too long. The refusal to let go often stems from fear of the unknown, fear of loss, fear of failure. However, wisdom teaches us that holding on to the past, to unfulfilled expectations, or to people who are no longer aligned with our journey only creates stagnation and prevents us from stepping into the fullness of what life has to offer. The process of letting go begins with acceptance. Acceptance does not mean agreeing with or condoning the circumstances. It means acknowledging reality as it is without resistance. It is the understanding that life is not always within our control, and that trying to force outcomes or hold on to what is slipping away only leads to frustration and pain. Wisdom recognizes that not everything is meant to stay in our lives forever. Some relationships, opportunities, and situations are meant to teach us, to grow us, and then to move on. The ability to accept this truth is a hallmark of maturity and insight. Letting go also requires humility. It is an acknowledgement that we do not have all the answers, that our perspective is limited, and that there are forces beyond our understanding at work. Humility allows us to release the need for control and to trust in the process of life. It is the realization that our grip on things does not determine their outcome. Wisdom understands that sometimes the very act of holding on is what creates suffering. When we cling to something that is no longer meant for us, we block the flow of new opportunities, new relationships, and new blessings. Letting go creates space for growth, for healing, and for the new. One of the greatest challenges of letting go is the emotional attachment we develop to people, places, and situations. These attachments often feel like an integral part of our identity. We tell ourselves stories about who we are based on the things we hold on to. And the idea of releasing them can feel like losing a part of ourselves. Yet wisdom teaches us that our identity is not tied to external things. Letting go does not diminish who we are. It allows us to rediscover ourselves in new and unexpected ways. It is a declaration that our worth is not determined by what we hold on to, but by our ability to adapt, to grow, and to trust. Letting go also involves forgiveness, not just of others, but of ourselves. Holding on to anger, resentment, or regret only chains us to the past. Forgiveness is a powerful act of release, a way of letting go of the pain and moving forward with a lighter heart. It is not about excusing wrongs or forgetting what has happened. It is about freeing ourselves from the grip of negativity. Wisdom understands that forgiveness is not a gift to the offender, but a gift to ourselves. It is an act of self-liberation and acknowledgement that we deserve peace more than we deserve to be right. Fear often plays a significant role in our reluctance to let go. We fear the unknown, the uncertainty of what lies ahead. We cling to the familiar even when it no longer serves us because it feels safe. Wisdom challenges this mindset, reminding us that growth always involves stepping into the unknown. It is in the letting go that we discover new possibilities, new strengths, and new opportunities. The very act of release is an act of courage, a demonstration of trust in the process of life. Wisdom understands that the unknown is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It is where growth happens, where transformation takes place, and where new chapters begin. Letting go also requires patience. It is not always an immediate process, nor is it always easy. It often involves a period of grieving, of coming to terms with the loss of what once was. This is a natural part of the process, and wisdom acknowledges that healing takes time. It is in this time of waiting, of reflection, that we often gain the greatest insights and clarity. Wisdom understands that letting go is not about forgetting or erasing the past. It is about honoring it for what it was and then moving forward. It is about carrying the lessons with us, but leaving the weight behind. Another profound aspect of letting go is the freedom it brings. When we release what no longer serves us, we free ourselves from the burden of carrying unnecessary weight. We free ourselves from the stress of trying to control outcomes that are beyond our control. This freedom allows us to live more fully in the present, to focus on what truly matters, and to embrace life with open hands and an open heart. Wisdom understands that life is best lived in the present moment, and that letting go is a way of reclaiming our power and our peace. Letting go is not a one-time act, it is a practice. Life will continually present us with situations where we must choose to release or to cling. Each time we choose to let go, we strengthen our ability to trust, to adapt, and to grow. It is a process of unlearning old patterns of fear and control and replacing them with faith and acceptance. Wisdom understands that this is not a sign of weakness, but of incredible strength. It takes courage to face the unknown, to release the familiar, and to trust in something greater than ourselves. Ultimately, letting go is a declaration of trust. It is a way of saying, I may not understand why this is happening, but I trust that there is a purpose. It is an act of faith in the unseen, a belief that there is a greater plan at work. Wisdom teaches us that life is not meant to be controlled, but to be lived. It is in the letting go that we find the freedom to truly live, to embrace the beauty of the present moment, and to step into the fullness of what life has to offer. Faith is active, not passive. It is not a state of mere belief or an abstract idea confined to thoughts and feelings. Instead, faith is dynamic, vibrant, and alive, requiring intentional action and engagement. Many people misunderstand faith as a passive state, a quiet acceptance of circumstances, or an idle hope for better days. Yet true faith compels us to move, to act, and to live in alignment with our beliefs and values. It is the engine that drives progress, the force that propels us to pursue what we cannot yet see, and the power that enables us to navigate the uncertainties of life with courage and determination. Faith demands a commitment to action because it is inherently forward-looking. It requires us to step into the unknown, to venture into territories where outcomes are uncertain, and to trust that our efforts will bear fruit. Passive faith, on the other hand, is content to wait, to stand still, and to hope that circumstances will align without any personal input. Active faith knows better. It recognizes that while we may not control everything, we are called to play our part, to make choices, and to take steps that align with the vision we hold in our hearts. Faith, in its truest form, is not about wishing for change. It is about being the catalyst for change. At its core, faith is about trust in a higher purpose, trust in the process of life, and trust in the unseen. But this trust is not passive. It calls us to align our actions with what we profess to believe. If we believe in growth, we must take the steps to learn, to improve, and to stretch beyond our comfort zones. If we believe in the fulfillment of a dream, we must work toward it with diligence and determination. Active faith is a partnership. It acknowledges that while the ultimate outcome may be beyond our control, we are responsible for what we do with the opportunities, resources, and time we are given. Faith that is active understands the importance of perseverance. It does not waver in the face of obstacles or setbacks, but presses on even when the path is unclear. Passive faith, by contrast, is easily discouraged. It waits for perfect conditions, for signs that the journey will be easy or that success is guaranteed. Active faith knows that the journey will have its challenges, but chooses to move forward anyway. It recognizes that every step, no matter how small, is a step closer to the goal. Active faith is resilient, adaptable, and persistent, understanding that the process itself is part of the transformation. Faith also requires vision. It is the ability to see beyond the present moment, to imagine possibilities that are not yet reality, and to act as though they are already within reach. This vision is not passive daydreaming. It is a driving force that inspires action. Passive faith may hold a vision but lacks the resolve to pursue it. Active faith turns vision into reality through consistent effort, unwavering belief, and a refusal to give up. It is the bridge between what is and what could be, the force that turns dreams into plans and plans into accomplishments. One of the most remarkable aspects of active faith is its ability to inspire others. When we live out our faith through action, we become a source of encouragement and motivation for those around us. Our actions demonstrate the power of belief, the strength of determination, and the courage to face challenges head on. Passive faith, on the other hand, often goes unnoticed. It is quiet, still, and unremarkable, lacking the energy and momentum that inspire change. Active faith, however, creates ripples. It influences others, ignites hope, and demonstrates what is possible when belief is paired with action. Faith that is active is deeply rooted in responsibility. It understands that while we may trust in a higher power, we are also entrusted with the ability to act. This duality, trusting and taking responsibility, defines the nature of active faith. It calls us to do our part, to use our gifts and abilities, and to contribute meaningfully to the world around us. Passive faith often relinquishes responsibility, waiting for external forces to dictate outcomes. Active faith, however, embraces the idea that we are co-creators of our reality, working in harmony with a greater plan to bring about positive change. Active faith is not without its challenges. It requires courage to step out of the familiar, to take risks, and to face uncertainty. It demands discipline to stay committed, to persevere in the face of doubt, and to remain steadfast when results are not immediate. It calls for humility to acknowledge that we do not have all the answers and that we must rely on guidance beyond ourselves. Yet these challenges are what make active faith so powerful. They refine us, strengthen us, and deepen our understanding of what it means to truly believe. Faith that is active transforms the way we approach life. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we can do with what we have. It teaches us to see challenges as opportunities for growth, to view setbacks as stepping stones, and to trust that every effort we make is meaningful. This mindset is not passive. It is intentional, purposeful, and deliberate. It is the mindset of someone who understands that faith is not about waiting for life to happen, but about making life happen through deliberate choices and actions. Active faith also brings a sense of peace and confidence. When we know we are doing our part, we can trust that the rest will fall into place. This trust is not born of naivety or wishful thinking. It is the result of knowing that we have given our best effort. Passive faith often leads to frustration and anxiety as it places the entire burden of change on external circumstances. Active faith, however, is empowering. It acknowledges that while we cannot control everything, we can control our response, our attitude, and our actions. Faith that is active is also deeply connected to hope. It is the belief that tomorrow can be better than today and the determination to work toward that better tomorrow. Hope without action is fleeting, but hope fueled by active faith is transformative. It gives us the strength to keep going, even when the road is difficult, and the courage to keep believing, even when the outcome is uncertain. Active faith sustains us, uplifts us, and propels us forward, reminding us that every effort, no matter how small, is a step towards something greater. Active faith is a journey, not a destination. It is a continuous process of believing, acting, and trusting. It requires us to be present in the moment, to take each day as it comes, and to give our best effort in every situation. It is not about perfection or always having the right answers. It is about showing up, taking risks, and learning along the way. Active faith is alive, evolving, and growing just as we are. It challenges us to be better, to do better, and to trust that our efforts are not in vain. In the end, faith that is active is a testament to the power of belief in action. It is the understanding that faith is not static but dynamic, not passive but engaged. It calls us to live with purpose, to act with intention, and to trust with confidence. It is a reminder that while faith may begin in the heart, it is brought to life through what we do, how we live, and the impact we have on the world around us. Holding on to the wrong things blocks your blessings. Life often places opportunities before us, pathways that can lead to fulfillment, growth, and purpose. Yet too often we hold tightly to what no longer serves us, past mistakes, toxic relationships, outdated beliefs, or habits that keep us stagnant. This unwillingness to release what is harmful or unnecessary becomes a barrier, preventing the flow of new opportunities, peace, and joy into our lives. It's as though our hands are so tightly grasped around what we are used to, even if it harms us, that we cannot open them to receive what is waiting to bless us. Many people hold on to the wrong things out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, and fear of losing what feels familiar. This fear convinces us that clinging to the known, no matter how damaging, is safer than stepping into the uncertainty of the unknown. But this kind of attachment does not lead to safety. Instead, it leads to stagnation. When we refuse to let go of the wrong things, we create an invisible wall around ourselves that keeps growth and progress at bay. We become trapped in cycles of frustration, wondering why our lives are not improving, not realizing that the key to unlocking our blessings lies in loosening our grip on what is not meant for us. Holding on to the wrong things often stems from a misplaced sense of identity. We sometimes tie our sense of self-worth or purpose to things, people, or circumstances that are no longer aligned with who we are becoming. Perhaps it's a relationship that once brought us joy but has since become a source of pain. Or maybe it's a job that no longer challenges or fulfills us, but we stay because it feels secure. We cling to these things because we have allowed them to define us. Letting go can feel like losing a part of ourselves, but in reality, it is an act of making room for the person we are meant to become. The act of holding on creates a kind of emotional clutter. Just as a home filled with unnecessary items feels cramped and chaotic, our inner lives become cluttered when we hold on to pain, regret, anger, or bitterness. This emotional clutter takes up space that could otherwise be filled with peace, creativity, and joy. It distracts us, drains our energy, and prevents us from focusing on the blessings that are already present in our lives. When we are so consumed by what we are holding on to, we fail to see the opportunities that are right in front of us. One of the greatest challenges of letting go is acknowledging that some things are simply not meant to stay. Whether it's a season of life, a relationship, or even a dream that no longer aligns with our purpose, everything has its time. But our inability to accept this truth often leads us to resist the natural flow of life. Instead of allowing things to come and go, we cling to what feels comfortable, even if it causes us pain. This resistance creates tension and struggle, blocking the blessings that come with embracing change and trusting the process of life. Letting go requires trust that releasing what no longer serves us will make way for something better. But this trust can be difficult to cultivate, especially when we cannot see what lies ahead. It's natural to want to hold on to what feels certain, even if it is harmful, because uncertainty can be intimidating. Yet, the most profound blessings often come from stepping into the unknown, from releasing what is holding us back and trusting that what is meant for us will come. Letting go is not an act of giving up, it is an act of faith, an act of believing that the future holds more for us than the past. Holding on to the wrong things often leads to missed opportunities. When our focus is consumed by what we are clinging to, we are unable to see the doors that are opening around us. We may miss the chance to build new relationships, pursue new passions, or explore new paths because we are so fixated on preserving what we already have. Letting go is an act of liberation. It frees us to embrace the possibilities that life has to offer, to step into new experiences with an open heart and mind. It allows us to move forward rather than remain stuck in patterns that no longer serve us. It's important to recognize that letting go does not mean forgetting or dismissing the value of what we are releasing. It means honoring the role it played in our journey while acknowledging that its purpose has been fulfilled. Everything we experience, whether positive or negative, contributes to our growth and understanding. Holding on to the wrong things often stems from a desire to preserve the past, to keep it alive in some way. But life is not meant to be lived in reverse. Letting go is an act of gratitude for what was, combined with a willingness to embrace what will be. The process of letting go can be uncomfortable and even painful. It requires us to confront our fears, to face the parts of ourselves that are resistant to change, and to challenge the narratives we have built around what we think we need. It is a process of unlearning, of releasing old patterns and beliefs that no longer align with our values and goals. But within this discomfort lies the potential for transformation. Letting go creates space for growth, for healing, and for the blessings that are waiting to enter our lives. Holding on to the wrong things also impacts our relationships. When we cling to resentment, grudges, or unmet expectations, we create barriers between ourselves and others. These barriers prevent us from experiencing the fullness of connection and intimacy. Letting go of past hurts does not mean condoning harmful behavior. It means freeing ourselves from the burden of carrying that pain. It means choosing to prioritize our own peace and well-being over the need to hold on to anger or disappointment. When we release these emotional burdens, we create space for love, forgiveness, and understanding to flourish. Letting go also allows us to reclaim our power. When we hold on to the wrong things, we often give away our energy and focus on situations or people that do not deserve it. We become consumed by what we cannot change, allowing it to dictate our thoughts and emotions. Letting go is an act of taking back control. It is a decision to redirect our energy toward what truly matters, to invest in our growth and happiness rather than dwelling on what cannot be undone or fixed. It is a declaration that we will no longer allow the past to hold us captive. The blessings that come from letting go are often unexpected. When we release what no longer serves us, we create a vacuum that is naturally filled with new opportunities, experiences, and relationships. These blessings may not always come in the form we expect, but they are always exactly what we need. Letting go is an act of alignment, a way of clearing the path so that what is meant for us can find its way into our lives. It is a process of surrendering control and trusting that the universe has a greater plan for us than we could ever imagine. Holding on to the wrong things is not only an obstacle to receiving blessings, it is also a source of unnecessary suffering. The weight of carrying what is not meant for us can be exhausting. It drains our energy, clouds our judgment, and limits our ability to experience joy. Letting go is an act of self-compassion. It is a way of lightening our load, of choosing to prioritize our own well-being over the need to hold on to what is familiar. It is a reminder that we are worthy of peace, happiness, and fulfillment, and that we do not have to carry burdens that are not ours to bear. The act of letting go is not a one-time event, it is an ongoing practice. Life will continually challenge us to release what no longer serves us, to embrace change, and to trust in the journey ahead. Each time we let go, we become stronger, more resilient, and more open to the blessings that life has to offer. It is a process of renewal, a way of shedding the old to make way for the new. Letting go is not about loss, it is about gain. It is about creating space for growth, for joy, and for the boundless possibilities that lie ahead. God's perspective and timing are greater than ours. Life often presents itself as a puzzle with pieces that do not seem to fit together, leaving us bewildered, frustrated, and at times impatient. In these moments, it's tempting to believe that the answers must come on our terms and within our desired timeline. But such thinking is rooted in our limited human perspective, one that sees only what is in front of us, not the full picture. God's view is eternal, limitless, and perfectly aligned with a greater purpose that far exceeds what we can comprehend. His timing and perspective are not confined to our understanding of the world. They operate in a realm that intertwines purpose, wisdom, and infinite foresight. Human beings are conditioned to seek instant results. We live in a world that encourages quick fixes, immediate gratification, and rapid solutions to our challenges. When life doesn't unfold according to our expectations, we grow restless, questioning the delays, doubting the process, and at times even doubting God's plan. But in doing so, we forget a critical truth. Our timeline is not God's timeline. What seems like a delay to us is often divine preparation. What feels like an unanswered prayer is often God working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning circumstances, and shaping us into the people we need to become in order to receive what we are asking for. His timing is not only perfect, it is purposeful. God's perspective is rooted in eternity, while ours is shaped by the present moment. We see life through a narrow lens, focused on what is immediate, tangible, and familiar. Our desires are often shaped by temporary needs, fleeting emotions, or incomplete information. But God sees beyond the here and now. He sees the beginning and the end, the journey and the destination, the trials and the triumphs, and the triumphs are not constrained by time or circumstance. They are designed to fulfill a purpose that is far greater than what we can imagine. When we align ourselves with His perspective, we begin to understand that delays, detours, and even disappointments are not obstacles. They are part of the process. In our impatience, we often try to force outcomes or take control of situations that are beyond our ability to manage. We strive to make things happen according to our timeline, believing that we know what is best. But this approach often leads to frustration, burnout, and unnecessary struggle. God's timing, on the other hand, is never rushed, never forced, and never out of alignment. He moves with precision, knowing exactly when to intervene, when to provide, and when to allow us to grow through the waiting. The waiting period, though uncomfortable, is often where the most profound growth takes place. It is in these moments that we learn to trust, to surrender, and to develop the patience and perseverance that prepare us for what is to come. Trusting in God's perspective requires humility. It requires acknowledging that we do not have all the answers, that our understanding is limited, and that our plans, no matter how carefully crafted, are subject to His will. This humility is not a sign of weakness, it is a recognition of His sovereignty. It is an act of faith that says, I may not understand why things are happening the way they are, but I trust that you do. This trust is not blind, it is rooted in the knowledge that God's character is unchanging, His wisdom is infinite, and His love for us is immeasurable. He does not withhold blessings out of indifference or neglect. He withholds them because He knows the perfect time and way to give them. There is a profound peace that comes from surrendering to God's timing. When we stop striving to control every outcome and start trusting that His plans are better than ours, we free ourselves from the anxiety and pressure of trying to make everything happen on our own. This peace does not mean that challenges will disappear or that we will always understand the why behind every situation. Rather, it is a peace that comes from knowing that we are held by a Creator who sees the full picture, who knows what we need even before we ask, and who is working all things together for our good. This peace allows us to rest in the assurance that even in the waiting, even in the uncertainty, we are exactly where we are meant to be. God's timing often challenges our patience because it requires us to let go of our need for control. Waiting can feel like wasted time, but it is anything but that. In God's hands, waiting is a season of preparation, refinement, and growth. It is a time when our character is strengthened, our faith is deepened, and our dependence on Him is solidified. It is in the waiting that we learn to rely not on our own understanding, but on His wisdom and guidance. This process is not always easy, but it is always purposeful. Every moment of waiting is an opportunity to grow closer to Him, to trust Him more fully, and to align our desires with His will. Sometimes God's perspective and timing involve saying no to something we deeply desire. This can be one of the most difficult aspects of trusting Him. When doors close, when opportunities slip away, or when prayers seem to go unanswered, it is easy to feel disappointed or even abandoned. But a no from God is not a rejection, it is a redirection. It is His way of steering us away from something that is not meant for us or not right for us at this time. What we perceive as a loss is often a gain in disguise, a protection from harm, a preparation for something greater, or a lesson that we need to learn. His no is just as much an expression of His love as His yes. God's perspective is not bound by our limitations. He sees the connections that we cannot see, the opportunities that we are unaware of, and the outcomes that we cannot predict. His timing ensures that everything unfolds in the right way at the right time and for the right reasons. When we look back on our lives, we often see how His timing was perfect, even if it didn't feel that way in the moment. The doors that closed, the relationships that ended, the paths that shifted, all of these events, though difficult at the time, were necessary for us to reach the place we are today. This hindsight reminds us that His plans are always better than our own. Living with this understanding requires a mindset shift. It requires us to move from a posture of striving to a posture of surrender, from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. When we trust in God's timing and perspective, we stop chasing what is not meant for us and start focusing on what He has already placed in front of us. We begin to see that His plans are not just about achieving specific outcomes, they are about shaping us into the people He created us to be. Every delay, every detour, every challenge is an opportunity for growth, for learning, and for becoming more aligned with His purpose for our lives. Trusting in God's timing does not mean that we sit back and do nothing. Faith is not passive, it is active. It requires us to take steps forward, even when the path is unclear, trusting that He will guide us. It requires us to be diligent, to work hard, and to steward well what He has given us, even as we wait for what is to come. This balance between action and trust is where faith truly comes alive. It is the recognition that while we have a role to play, the ultimate outcome is in His hands. This trust allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that we are not walking alone. God's perspective reminds us that life is not a series of isolated events, but a beautifully interconnected story. Every moment, every experience, every relationship is part of a larger tapestry that He is weaving together. We may not understand how the pieces fit or why certain things happen, but we can trust that He does. His timing ensures that each piece falls into place at exactly the right moment, creating a picture that is more beautiful and meaningful than anything we could create on our own. This understanding allows us to live with hope, even in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that His plans for us are good. When we align ourselves with God's perspective and timing, we begin to experience life in a new way. We stop clinging to what is temporary and start focusing on what is eternal. We stop measuring success by the world's standards and start seeking His purpose for our lives. This shift in perspective changes everything. It frees us from the burden of trying to control what is beyond our control and allows us to live with a sense of peace, purpose, and trust. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are part of something greater, and that His plans for us are always worth waiting for. Trusting God brings freedom and peace. It is an act that seems simple on the surface, but is profound in its depth. In a world where we are taught to rely on our own strength, intellect, and resources, surrendering to a higher power and placing our trust in God can feel like a daunting step. We live in a society that often values independence and control, and it can be challenging to embrace a mindset that calls for letting go and yielding to a force far greater than ourselves. Yet, there is a peace and freedom that comes from trusting God that surpasses understanding, a peace that cannot be found in anything the world offers. At the core of human nature is a desire to be in control. We seek to manage our circumstances, our relationships, and our futures because we fear the uncertainty of what lies ahead. We want security, comfort, and assurance, and often we believe that these can only be found by exerting control over our lives. However, the more we try to control, the more we realize how little control we actually have. Life's unpredictability, its challenges, surprises, and inevitable disappointments remind us of our limitations. In these moments of helplessness and vulnerability, trusting in God becomes not just a spiritual practice, but a path to freedom. The freedom that comes with trusting God is not the absence of challenges or difficult circumstances. Rather, it is the freedom to live with confidence in the midst of those challenges, knowing that no matter what happens, God is in control. It is the freedom from anxiety, fear, and the burden of trying to orchestrate every detail of our lives. When we trust God, we release ourselves from the weight of worrying about outcomes, knowing that His plan is far greater than anything we could have envisioned. This freedom comes from surrendering our desires, our anxieties, and our need for control to a higher purpose. Trusting God also brings peace. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict, but the presence of a deeper understanding that everything is happening according to a greater purpose. It is the peace that transcends our human understanding, a peace that is not shaken by the turbulence of life's storms. When we trust God, we acknowledge that He knows what is best for us, even when the road ahead seems unclear or difficult. This peace comes from knowing that we are not alone, that there is a guiding force that is working on our behalf, and that our ultimate security is found in His hands. This peace that comes from trust is not a temporary or fleeting peace. It is a lasting peace, a peace that remains even in the face of adversity. When life throws unexpected curveballs, when our plans unravel, or when we face overwhelming challenges, trusting God offers us a sense of calm amidst the chaos. It allows us to navigate the storms of life with confidence, knowing that God is with us, guiding us and strengthening us along the way. This peace is a result of knowing that we do not have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders because God is carrying it for us. When we trust God, we move from a place of fear and doubt to a place of faith and assurance. Fear often arises from our lack of control over situations, but when we place our trust in God, we are reminded that He is sovereign over all. The fear of the unknown dissipates when we recognize that the one who holds the future also holds us in His hands. It is a shift from anxiety to calm, from restlessness to contentment. Trusting God allows us to release the burden of fear and embrace a peace that transcends all understanding. True freedom comes when we no longer feel the need to control everything. In a world that emphasizes personal power, self-reliance, and independence, surrendering control can feel like a radical act. Yet the moment we let go and trust in God, we experience the freedom to live without the constant pressure of having to figure everything out. This freedom allows us to pursue our passions, live with purpose, and experience life fully without the constant weight of worry and doubt. Trusting God gives us the freedom to embrace the unknown, knowing that the path ahead, no matter how uncertain, is being guided by a loving and wise Creator. The peace that comes from trusting God also brings a sense of security. In our human experience, we often find ourselves placing our security in external things, our jobs, our relationships, our financial stability, or our achievements. These are all valuable, but they are not guaranteed. External circumstances are often beyond our control, and they can change in an instant. When we place our trust in God, however, we find a security that is not dependent on the ever-changing circumstance of life. His love, His promises, and His faithfulness are unchanging. And when we anchor ourselves in Him, we experience a peace that remains steadfast in every season of life. Trusting God also brings freedom from comparison. In a society that constantly measures success, beauty, and worth by external standards, it is easy to fall into the trap of comparison. We look at others and feel inadequate or insecure about our own lives. But when we trust God, we are reminded that our worth is not defined by external achievements or the opinions of others. Our worth is inherent in the fact that we are created by God and He loves us unconditionally. This realization brings freedom from the pressure to conform to society's standards and allows us to live authentically, embracing who we are and the unique path that God has set before us. When we trust God, we also experience the freedom to forgive. Holding on to past hurts and grudges can be a heavy burden. It weighs us down and keeps us bound to the past. But trusting God frees us from the need for vengeance or justice on our own terms. It allows us to release the pain and the resentment, knowing that God is just and that He will take care of what we cannot. Trusting God empowers us to forgive others as we have been forgiven, and in doing so, we experience a freedom that is not available when we cling to bitterness or anger. Moreover, trusting God frees us from the need to prove ourselves. So much of life is spent trying to gain approval, validation, and recognition from others. But when we trust God, we realize that His approval is all we need. We do not need to prove our worth to anyone because we are already accepted, loved, and valued by the Creator of the universe. This understanding frees us from the need for external validation and allows us to live confidently, knowing that our value is intrinsic and not dependent on the opinions of others. Trusting God also brings peace to our relationships. In relationships, it is easy to become anxious or fearful about the future, wondering if we will be loved, if we will be hurt, or if things will fall apart. But when we trust God, we are able to let go of these fears. We can love others freely, knowing that we are secure in His love. We can trust that God is at work in our relationships, healing wounds, restoring brokenness, and bringing people together according to His will. This peace enables us to navigate relationships with patience, grace, and understanding, knowing that we are not in control of others, but trusting that God is working in their lives as well as our own. Trusting God also brings peace in our circumstances. Life is filled with ups and downs, moments of joy and moments of sorrow. In the midst of these fluctuations, trusting God allows us to find peace that is not dependent on what is happening around us. Whether in times of abundance or times of lack, in times of health or times of illness, trusting God gives us a sense of inner peace that sustains us through it all. This peace does not come from external circumstances, but from the knowledge that we are held by a loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful God who is working for our good in every situation. Ultimately, trusting God brings freedom and peace because it aligns us with the truth of who we are and the purpose for which we were created. When we trust God, we step into the fullness of life that He has designed for us. We stop striving to control, to manipulate, or to achieve things in our own strength, and instead we surrender to His will. This surrender brings peace because it removes the burden of having to figure everything out. It brings freedom because we are no longer bound by the need to control or the fear of the unknown. We are free to live boldly, confidently, and peacefully, knowing that we are guided by a loving and faithful God who will never leave us or forsake us.